Another week of seed starting chitter chatter, I guess we could call it. So last week, we took the time together to look at my seed starting process, and I thought this would be a perfect week for you guys to visit my grow room as we're just starting to get fired up here. So if we haven't met before, my name is Lisa Mason Ziegler of the Gardener's Workshop, and I am a cut flower farmer. Been growing since 1998 and have done a whole lot of other things in addition to that. And a big part of what our business has evolved to is teaching you how we do it. Perhaps my secret to success is simple, easy, fastest, quickest, most efficient, most least expensive, which is the way that every business owner wants to do everything, right? You want the best ending result, the quickest way to get there, and to do it the most economically. Well, I frankly believe that even gardeners want that to be true for them, right? So I want to just say first, last week we did a great, soil blocking is the way that we seed start. And I took you through my process of how we make the blocks and all of that. And I asked you to leave your questions in the comments and then I would come back and answer them well. I inadvertently, mistakenly cut the comments off when I set up the live so nobody could comment. I had people DMing me on all other social media. So today I believe that the comments are turned on. So if you have a question, I'd be happy to come back and do my best to answer that. So you can post that in the comments. And so the other thing is you can always, and I'm not a very good salesperson, y'all. And the other question that I got several times last week was, where can we get this stuff? People wanted to know about soil blockers or the seeds or any of that stuff. You can find, we sell on our website, thegardenersworkshop.com, which is an online garden shop. Our niche is that we only sell the things that I use. That's we've narrowed it down for you. So you can pretty much find everything I speak of and use and you see here on our website. So with that said, let's just kind of take a little walk down where we just came from last week and where we are today. So last week I sewed a couple of little small trays of some cool season hardy annuals. So we are in January. It's the 21st, I think. And so it's way too early for us here in the mid-Atlantic to even think about starting warm season seeds yet, right? But we are dead in the middle of cool season hardy annual flower starting season. If you're not familiar with my book, Cool Flowers, which is all about that concept, which y'all, I didn't make this up. Our grandmas used to do it. You can learn more about that concept. So last week we started a little tray of stock and a little tray of straw flowers, which we're going to look at because they're sprouted and they've now been moved over to the grow lights. But yesterday, yesterday I did it on a Facebook Live. I kind of did for them what I did for you last week with a little other stuff thrown in. You can always find those replays on Facebook on my Gardener's Workshop farm page if you want to revisit that. But yesterday we started 4 or 5, I've already forgotten what's behind me on this tray, on the mat, trays of straw flowers. Straw flowers are a really underutilized cut flower crop. Not only are they amazingly bright colored, long lasting, beautiful flowers that then will dry and hold their color, but they're so useful. We found through our years of selling to 23 florists, 2 supermarket chains, and then having a bouquet subscription and a members only market here on the farm, we could never ever have enough straw flowers. They're excellent bouquet fillers. They are a great fill-in in the middle of summer. For those of you that are growers that have experienced what we call Xenia Meltdown, which is a phenomena that happens because of conditions that leads to just a problem with zinnias. Zinnias are a big player on our farm. They're the #1 seed we sell. They are the #1 commercial, not #1, in the top 10 commercial flowers that we sell. So when we have a problem with them, we have a big hole. Well, we have learned that straw flowers can just about skirt in and take over that role as they need to. So what I've learned is, I didn't even realize how significant straw flowers could be until I really started experimenting with them a couple years ago. So they are a cool flower. That means they're a cool season hardy annual. However, they're not really winter hardy here where I am in zone 7B/8A, because meaning that I don't fall plant them to winter over as I do many other cool flowers. We have found that planting them in very early spring, which is about 6 to 8 weeks before our last frost, planting transplants out in the garden, does beautifully. But we've even pushed the envelope even further with straw flowers. We have succession plant them. We started them yesterday and a little during this period now in January. We will start them again in a month and then again in a month, just to kind of extend our harvest. They perform beautifully in the heat when they get rooted in during the cooler times of the year. And you can find the seeds over on my website. So for years we've sold the mix, but now because of their significance, we're now selling all the individual colors, and y'all, they're hot. The light yellow, the rose color, which is hot pink anyway. So yesterday I started more, and I thought I'd let y'all walk with me this morning as I water these guys, and we'll look at them over on the grow light, the ones that we did last week. So I'm thinking that I can drop this down and let you guys kind of see so this is kind of my heat mat table. So this is a wooden tabletop, and we offer 2 sizes of seedling heat mats. You can see here, that one is what we call the home gardener, the getting started heat mat, and then this one is a much larger version of that same one. They have built-in thermostats, which means that thickened spot over here is a thermostat that triggers this mat to warm up 15 to 20 degrees warmer than the air temperature, which is the ticket for great germination. Warm soil for cool flowers anyway, warm soil with cool air temps. Our air temp in here is about 65, actually it's 67 degrees today. So that's heating this up to 15 to 20 degrees warmer than that, and it's given us great germination. So the rest of the story that you're seeing here is these are, in fact, just cookie cooling racks, just like your mom puts cookies on, or you might. And when we are starting cool season hardy annuals, we have found that cookie cooling rack creates just enough airspace between the mat and the bottom of the trays to cool it down just a smidge. Cool season hardy annuals do need consistent long-term or 24/7 warmth, but not quite as warm as what the warm season stuff does. So I'm going to uncover, this is wide weave burlap, and we use this. I have never been a dome user. I learned seed starting from Elliot Coleman, and Elliot said in his book that I read, or I'm not sure if I saw him on TV talking about it, that domes are if they are not really closely monitored, they're very, your seedlings or your seed starting is very susceptible to disease or fungus. And that's because the dome traps so much moisture. And I'll be real honest, I am not a great monitor, you guys. I'm in my grow room one time a day, in the morning early, taking care of business, and that's it. So he didn't use domes, and so I never use domes. But a lot of flowers are surface sown, as many vegetable seeds are too, and they can dry out really quickly. We have found that using wide weave burlap traps some moisture, but it also allows air to move. And as you can see, it is just simply laying on top of my blocks here. So I'm going to pull this back and show you. This is what I did yesterday. So it's 4 trays of more straw flowers, the solid colors. And so they obviously haven't sprouted yet because they were just put down here yesterday about this time, actually. And so they're sitting on the cookie cooling racks, and that just creates just enough space to give them what they need. The other thing I want to point out, notice I always have sticky traps in my grow room at all times. It's a great monitoring tool. You can see there's a couple of big things on there. It actually caught just regular flies. But these are the ones left from the end of the seed starting season in October. And you can see we have there's a little bit of dirt on there too, but you can see we've got all kinds of flying creatures on here, some of which were fungus gnats. You know, we just always have sticky traps present. So I am going to water these trays and show you kind of how I do it. So I will, let me see if I can turn this around and show you. Let's see if it shows you. Not very good. Let me bring you down a little bit. So this, let's see. All right, so I keep this large, this is like a kitchen trash can full of water in my grow room. And that I dip from it like I'm getting ready to do. And then when I'm done, I refill it up and it sits for 24 hours because we have chlorine obviously in our water here. And it just does a really good job of letting me water. So let me move you guys back up so you can watch what I'm getting ready to do. So I just dip a little bit of water, and you can see I just use a regular watering can without a sprinkler on here. And I am going to just gently pour water in here. And when the soil blocks are at this stage where they don't have roots yet, you need to be sure you're thoroughly watering them, but they don't take the volume of water as they would once they get growing going on. Let me tell you, when you've got roots and plants growing, you just can't even believe how much water these blocks will absorb. And if you notice, I'm pouring towards the side of the tray, so I am not pushing water towards the block. And the other part of my room, which you'll see what I'm getting ready to tip these up a little bit, my room has a drain in the middle of the floor, so this room, which is 10 by 10, has a natural decline to the middle of the room. So all the water runs to the front of the tray. So I always have to be sure the back of the trays get really, really well watered. And that has happened. The water's all in the front. So oftentimes at this point when there's not so many trays, I just literally turn them around during this soaking up process. And sometimes I look like I might have been a little sideways yesterday. Look how crooked those blocks are. So I'm just turning them around. And so when I'm watering, I always choose to put a smidgen more than I think the blocks need. And then I leave this water, as you're going to see here, for just a couple of minutes to give all the blocks time to really absorb all the water they're going to absorb. Interestingly enough, I put too much down there. That one's really got a lot left over. But what I'm looking for, let's just say if we warped forward 2 minutes, what I'm looking for is water, a smidgen of water at least to be left in the tray, because that says to me the blocks have absorbed all they can absorb. If I come back to a tray that has zero water residue visible that I can see, I think to myself, I wonder if I put enough water, and I would add a little bit more. At this stage in the growth, this isn't really that big of a issue. It's when you have plants 2 inches tall, you really have to be sure the interior of those center blocks get fully wet. They'll get wet on the outside really quickly, but for the water to seep in and soak into those middle blocks, you have to give it a little bit of time. So literally, this one just barely has any remnants, and I literally will leave a little drip like that in there with no problem. This one has too much. See that there? So you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm just going to very gently, don't pour really quickly, or the water moving across the tray will really can destroy some of your blocks. And see, I put too much in here, and that's my favorite new color too, yellow. You know, yellow is the color of the year. Last year, this year it's kind of a blue lavender, right? So I am messing up one. I put too much water in this one. Y'all, does it make you feel better to see that even those of us that have been doing this for decades still screw it up? So what happened, I don't know if you can see it, but this block right here kind of washed away a little bit, and that was from pouring the water off. So you just have to be really slow, and what I tend to do, which I didn't do on that tray, is to pour from a corner where there's not a block right there. That does tend to help. So I'm just pouring this into the floor drain. If you're doing this inside of a home or a garage, you just have to have a bucket. And again, you know, I'm leaving maybe a tablespoon of water because especially while they're on, that's a little too much. Especially when they're on the heat mat, they will quickly dry out. And that's it, y'all, for watering on the heat mat. And then I just simply cover them back up. So what I'll be looking at as to when I move them from here is what we're going to see next. I'll talk a little bit about that. So the burlap just lays on the top, and that's it, right? All right, so now I'm not sure if I think I'm going to have to take you off the stand for this. Stand by, y'all. You know, I'm just not the greatest cameraman. Okay, so let's take a little flip around and let's look. So these are the lights that we prefer to use. I will tell you because people get a flash of them and they always ask later, why are those lights over there so far from that shelf while these are so close? That is because those were an error. Those are T5 lights. That's referring to the type of bulb that's in there. And they get super hot. I bought those probably 8 or 9 years ago. They were super expensive, even buying them wholesale as I can because I'm a retailer. And you can see that I had to eliminate a shelf. See where that shelf is over there? I had to remove that one because that light will cook those seedlings on a tray if it's within, 12, 15 inches. So these are the ones that we love and the ones that we sell. They have, I always forget, y'all, T8s or T12s. They're both perform about the same. And you can see how close they are to the seedlings. And then as the plants grow up, the canopy will, the canopy is almost right under it. Why I like T8s and T12s is they give off a very small amount of warmth. And that does contribute to the growth of your seedlings, we have learned. People that have LEDs, which give off absolutely no heat whatsoever, have mentioned that that's one of the pieces that they feel like is missing. So anyway, so we love this type of light for this reason. So this is the stock that we started last week. And I just moved these guys off the heat. You can see they're still in the sprouting stage. But when 50% of the seeds show signs of life, that means just cracking, y'all. And so I just moved these off of the heat over here to the light late yesterday evening. And this is the straw flowers. And they are still in the process. You can see them still emerging there. And so the reason you move when there's 50% is the heat at that point in time has pretty much done its job. And you can even see like how this one's leaning towards us. That was one of the first ones to sprout, I would guess. And it was starting to lean towards the windows while it was still over there on the heat mat. And look here, we always have our seedling, our fungus gnat traps. And so the way you put the fungus gnat sticky traps, or they'll catch any flying insect, is you want to just place the sticky trap where the flies will just either fly into it or land on it. When we're using bigger trays, which we'll get into that as the season moves on, and there's a big water well area in those big trays, I'll even lay some just flat on the tray. I don't peel the back side of the sticky trap off, and they just land on it. So I just try to have one sticky trap per shelf. And then, of course, we continue to use the Gnat Troll, which goes into my watering cans on Wednesdays. And these guys will get their food from the Neptune's Harvest seaweed and fish that we use every week. So the watering over here, so let's water these guys. I'm going to try to water them I'm going to hold the camera and water at the same time. You all will soon learn that I am not a super coordinated person because I have to look at what I'm doing. So I'm just pouring a little bit, enough to flood around the tray. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I used a smaller watering can for when I was a smaller grower and didn't have nearly the volume of trays in this room. A smaller watering can will definitely work. And so we're just going to chit chat while that water absorbs for a couple of minutes. So what my habit has always been is when we were in high production, this room had literally, you won't even believe it, it had 4 of these racks with, is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 now. 6 racks or shelves, and each shelf holds 750 approximately soil blocks. So you can work on a lot, you can produce a lot in a really small space. So my habit of madness back then was I would start on one corner, I'd start over here and start watering and going up and down all the shelving units and then pouring in what I thought was a smidgen more than what they needed. And then I would go back and just like we did here, then I would go back to the beginning and start pouring off any I can't even say the word, excessive water, y'all. Wait a minute, I'm going to put this back on here. Stand by. Y'all, the new iPhone's buttons are deeper on the side of the phone, and what you don't realize is oh, look, and now that's not upside down. Wait a minute. You're looking at, that's my trays, my seed starting trays. What happens to me is it's very different now. The way I used to have to put the phone in the tripod, you can't do it in the middle because all of a sudden the emergency SOS thing comes up. Anyway, so the method to my madness is to start at the beginning at the head of my shelving units and water. And by the time I get through all of them, it's been, 3 to 5 minutes, if not even longer. I go back to the beginning and do like I just did with these heat mats. I put my eyeball on every tray. Is there extra water? Pour it off. If there's residue, I just leave it. If there's no water, I think, maybe I didn't put enough water in that tray and I should add a little bit more. And I've learned, you have to do it a few times of coming back in the next morning and finding some of your seedlings toasted because they didn't get watered thoroughly, to really figure out what your process will be. But again, the more vegetation growth there is, the more water they need. And you need to pay closer attention because first off, you can't put your eyes on the middle of the tray because they're blocked by plants, right? And so watering, I will say, is the biggest learning curve. Once people get over the initial, I can't believe plants grow in that little teeny block, then the next wall they hit is watering. I think people are afraid to overwater, so they underwater, but you can definitely master how you can pour off any excessive water after you've watered. Once you get that little system down, that prevents you from underwatering. Because when the plants, right before we move our transplants from the grow lights in here, typically once they're at least 1.5 inches tall, depends on the stage of season we're in, how many thousands of seed transplants are en route. We call it a seedling freight train. Once we start starting seeds, there is this wave that has to keep moving through our equipment. And friends, I'm here to tell you, nobody ever has enough heat mat space, enough grow light space. None of us do. Even when you have a lot, you're still needing to grow more. So you have to get your steps and your system down till you start this many seeds, and then 3 or 4 days later you start more seeds, because those seeds are moving off the heat to the grow lights, and so forth and so on. Definitely grow light space is the most valuable. However, heat mat and grow light real estate is the most valuable growing space we have on our farm, because it's very intense. If you don't start them, you can't plant them, and if you can't plant them, you can't grow them. And that is literally just the bottom line. It seems so darn simple. It seems like we should spend a whole lot of time learning and planning, but friends, I am here to tell you, just jump. Just do it, because every failure you have is the potential to learn an amazing lesson. And you just have to do it. I've been doing some reels over on Instagram this week of kind of like, I'm shuffling photos, so a lot of images from, the last 20 years. I just can't believe how much work we've done. I literally don't know how we did it. But I'm kind of giving some of my, bottom line thoughts. The one yesterday where it's a reel of just buckets and buckets and buckets of harvests of flowers. And you can find my Instagram account at Gardener's Workshop Farm. And yesterday I said, she thought she could do it, so she did. It's like, y'all, I never dreamed that it would evolve to what that was yesterday. And today I wrote that success is not a comfortable procedure. If you want to be a successful business owner, you have to become comfortable with uncomfortableness, because that's what being in business is. And, when you're gardening and starting seeds, you might pout for the day about, that you toasted something or it didn't germinate or whatever. But when you're a commercial grower, it is much bigger than that. Instead of pouting, you have to say, all right, we got to do this again. What did we do wrong? Or what can I try different? Or that is the kind of go-getter attitude we have to have. And it is not natural for everybody. It was not natural for me at all. I was a fretter. And I am not a fretter anymore, so anybody can learn to do this, and it's the company that you keep, friends. I'm married into a very large entrepreneurial family of very successful business people, and sitting at dinner tables with these people and listening to them talk about problems that would have put me on my knees, and how you fix it and you move on. And so that's what I want to pass on to you. That's perhaps what my secret sauce, my jam is. And seed starting is the first wall a lot of people hit. So trying to help you out with that, friends. So till we meet again, I don't have a regular YouTube live time, but I'm working on that. But you can connect with me on Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook. I do lives each week on all of them. So friends, till we meet again, and remember, thegardenersworkshop.com is where you can find me, find my blog, my podcast, tons of content. We have a learning center, and as I mentioned earlier, all the equipment, seeds, tools, supplies, and our online courses for farmers and for gardeners, you can find at thegardenersworkshop.com. All right, friends, glad you joined me. Ciao.